Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Please stand for the national anthem of Sweden, followed by that of St. Lucia. Kindly remain standing as prayers are led by Mrs. Suzette Collymore.
Can we please adopt the posture for prayer? Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here this morning. We thank you for your grace, your love, and tender mercies. We ask you that you guide these proceedings, open our minds, so that we can receive the information that is going to be presented to us. We ask you to take us back to our destination safely, and that we have a successful event. This I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much. Please be seated. Dame Paulette Louisi, Governor General Emerita and Chair of the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee, Your Excellency, Anders Bengtsson and Mrs. Benson, Ambassadors of Sweden to St. Lucia, Your Excellency, Ms. Amy Quattrell, the Interim Resident British High Commissioner, Mrs. Michelle Anthony Daisy, Honorary Consul of Sweden to St. Lucia, Mr. Alexis Flitt, Representative of Mexico to St. Lucia, Ms. Sunita Daniel, CEO of Export St. Lucia, our esteemed keynote speaker, Mr. Eric de Lurude, members of the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee, innovators, entrepreneurs, students, teachers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a good morning. It is with an excessive dose of national pride that I wish you all a happy Nobel Laureate Day. Happy Nobel Laureate Day to everybody. Today, some 32 years ago in 1993, our nation first celebrated Nobel Laureate Day, led by the then Prime Minister Sir John Compton and under the chairmanship of educator Hunter J. Francois. we nationally committed to celebrating this coveted status of having two citizens, not one, but two citizens who have honored our country by receiving the Nobel Prize. Whether by coincidence or fate, the date January 23rd is sealed in the genesis of St. Lucians as a people. I am Linnell Malze, and I serve my country as Director of Innovation. It is an honor to welcome you on behalf of the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee and the Consulate of Sweden in St. Lucia to this lecture entitled Becoming a Successful Entrepreneur and Innovator. Symbolically, today, our lecture, through its different lenses, and though from a different industry space, mirrors the mindset of the Nobel laureates. Sir Arthur Lewis and Sir Derek Walcott, in their respective fields of literature and economics, were innovators, as they made groundbreaking contributions which continues to influence not only these disciplines, but also broader cultural and intellectual landscapes. I would like to remind everyone on this year that the theme for Nobel Laureates Festival is acclaiming our trailblazers, inspiring our nation. We continue to celebrate excellence in everything that we do nationally, and it travels with us as St. Lucians globally. That having been posited, it is important for those who have achieved success to be generous in sharing their evolution, their story, so that others may be inspired by sharing their diverse perspectives, transferring knowledge, building a culture of supportive communities for entrepreneurs and innovators, and finally, a strong, innovative cycle. Lest I commence the lecture on my own accord, I would like to welcome the chair of the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee, Dame Paulette Louisi, to deliver her opening remarks. Let's welcome her.
I thank you, Linnell, and today, as Linnell just reminded us, is Nobel Laureate Day. I have, particularly for the younger ones, and let me say how pleased I am at the turnout. I wanted to have the youth, and particularly the secondary school students whom I know, our future. I wanted to have them there, and I'm so pleased with the turnout. So let me thank the principals and the teachers for allowing them. I'm sure they don't mind getting away from physics or chemistry, or even worse yet, maths. Yeah, so when I first met the ambassador, we talked about, Sweden, and then he says, but that's the home of the Nobel Prize. So we started to talk about our own Nobel laureates and our festival, and with the honorary consul, Mrs. Daisy, we chatted and said, we need to have some kind of collaboration between, Sweden and St. Lucia. And it's out of that this particular event, evolved. And like myself, the ambassador was very interested in the youth and in innovation. And so we had this beautiful marriage of ideas and thoughts. And so here we are today, waiting with bated breath to hear what our guest speaker can share with us. I think it is the beginning of I hope it is the beginning of a lasting relationship between Sweden and St. Lucia. I envisage exchange visits between Sweden and St. Lucia, particularly with the youth, so that they can get a first-hand experience of, the country that prides itself as being, the country where things happen. So it is my pleasure, therefore, to invite the ambassador to address the gathering, and thank you.
Thank you. So, Dame Perlette Lucy, Governor General Emerita, and Chair of the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee, Your Excellency Ms. Amy Quantrill, Interim Resident British High Commissioner, members of the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee, students, the future of St. Lucia, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. For Sweden, it's an honor to be present here today and to participate in the festivities during Nobel Laureate Day. This is a special day. This is the birthday of the two Nobel laureates, as was just said by previous speakers, Sir Derek Walcott and Sir Arthur Lewis. So for us to be here to participate in this event, it's a great honor and a privilege. Sweden is the home of the Nobel Prize, and yesterday an exhibition about the Nobel Prize was inaugurated down at City Hall through cooperation with the National Archives Authority and under the leadership there of Margot Thompson. Please go and see that exhibition.
Oh, yes.
It's a great exhibition, and it will provide you with insights about the history of the Nobel Prize. I will provide you with a short story of the Nobel Prize. So the Nobel Prize came about, was established way back 130 years ago in 1895 by Swedish inventor, industrialist, and chemist Alfred Nobel. He had made a fortune on several of his inventions. The most famous one is dynamite. And in his will, he decided to establish the Nobel Prize. And he established several categories, 5 categories to start with. So, prize in physics, prize in chemistry, prize in medicine or physiology, prize in literature, and a prize, peace, the Nobel Peace Prize. And then subsequently, prize in economics was also established during the 60s. In November each year, these prizes are announced, and then they are awarded in Stockholm by the Swedish king in December, on December 10th each year, with one exception. The Nobel Peace Prize is presented in Oslo, in Norway. And why is that? Well, back in 1905 and in the early 1900s, Sweden and Norway, we were one country. And so there had to be a distribution of the prizes and the award ceremony. So that's the background. And that's briefly the Nobel Prize. I'll now say a few sentences about Sweden. What kind of a place is Sweden? You know, it's up there in Northern Europe, in the northern corner of Europe. It's a country size of California, roughly size of California, about 11 million people living there. These days, it's highly industrialized, developed country. We rely heavily on our high-tech companies being able to be competitive out there on tough global markets, be competitive with innovative products and innovative services. That is the basis for the wealth in our country. We use about 3.5% of our GDP for research and technology development each year. And most of that comes from the private sector. And we constantly have to keep our sort of eye on the ball to be competitive and to maintain a high standard of living for our citizens. Now, it has not always been that case. If we go back in time to when Alfred Nobel was around and established a Nobel Prize, Sweden was a completely different place. There was widespread poverty. There was, at times, even famine. 1/5 of the population decided to leave the country, pack up, and most of them went to the United States. They emigrated out of the country, and very, very few actually came back. And then, slowly but surely, Sweden developed. Now, in the past 10, 15 years, the thing that has been fueling economic development in Sweden is very much the transformation of our country into a non-fossil-based society. That's an objective which is shared across all political parties. And the goal is to reach zero net emissions by 2045. So how are we going to do that? Well, part of the answer you will hear shortly by the lecturer, Erik Döllerud. But generally speaking, we're phasing out the fossils in electricity generation. So no more use of fossil fuels in electricity generation. The challenge now is to replace transportation, the fossils used in transportation, with alternatives, namely electricity. And also the other challenge is in industrial processes, where there are all kinds of new smart technologies based on electricity that can replace old fossil-based technologies. So how are we doing? Well, compared to the 90s, we managed to reduce those emissions by around 30%. So we're doing reasonably well. And this is of crucial importance to our country, but actually, as all of you know, crucial importance to the world also, to actually reduce those emissions. It has effects all over the world, and you know very well here in the Caribbean what those effects are. So, the non-fossil-based economy, non-fossil-based companies, extremely important in Sweden. And one of those companies that are out there as a pioneer is Modvion. It's an example of a company in this non-fossil based economy. And I'm delighted to present the founder engineer of Modvion to you today as your lecturer, Mr. Erik Döllerud. Mr. Erik Döllerud, he has a Master of Science in Naval Architecture from Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg, and he also holds a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg. And he will speak to you about his own personal journey to become a successful innovator and entrepreneur, and the journey of his company. Mr. Erik Döllerud, please come up. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And thank you, St. Lucia, for having me. It's an honor to be here. I will rearrange the cables a little bit, and then I will start the presentation, okay? So, as we have already stated, my name is Erik Döderud. I'm the founding engineer of Modvion. I've worked with the company since we were only 2 people. And I've taken a lot of responsibility for the technical solutions in making the things work. And with this presentation, my goal is to inspire and show what we've been able to do. We are working on a technical solution that will benefit society, both in Sweden and elsewhere. And I want to show the benefits of the Modvion technology initially. Then I will show my own personal journey. And at the end of the presentation, I will also talk a little bit about what I think are the prerequisites that are needed to foster innovation and entrepreneurship in a society, and hopefully tie that together. There will be a short break after the Modvion section where we can ask some questions if we like. We'll probably have to keep it quite short, but a few questions, and then there will be opportunity to ask some more questions at the very end. Thank you. Modvion makes wind turbine towers out of wood. We make the really big wind turbine towers, and we make them out of wood. And the reason for doing that is that we want to accelerate the transition into sustainable, renewable energy generation. Making the turbine towers out of wood makes wind power an even better energy source. And we also want to be a spearhead or a showcase for what can be accomplished with the timber construction solutions to benefit the transition to renewable construction materials. Wind turbines are growing in size. I'm sure you have seen pictures of them or films even. They are huge by now. And the reason that they are growing in size is because the cost of electricity is reduced when the wind turbine becomes larger. Both because of economies of scale, but also the fact that the taller the tower, the better the wind, basically. But when you make the tower taller, you also want to make the base wider in order to be able to support the loads, right? And you run into this logistical problem quite quickly, which is quite a big pain. So a modular solution like the Modvion solution is needed going forward to make the wind turbine system cost effective in the future. The Modvion tower is inherently modular due to the way that we assemble the tower and due to the incoming material that we use. The tower components are transported to the site and they are then assembled on the ground, and they are then lifted on top of each other in order to create the tower. And this enables us to build taller towers in sites that would be otherwise inaccessible for the pre-existing solutions. This slide here shows the in the United States, how many sites would become available that was otherwise not available when you are able to use a modular solution for the tower. This will greatly benefit wind in becoming an even greater source of electricity. So the solution presents a simplified logistics. It makes it cost-effective to build really tall wind turbine towers, which is beneficial, and also the emissions from production of the tower material is greatly reduced when you make the tower out of wood compared to when you make it out of steel or concrete. The material that we use is called LVL. It stands for laminated veneer lumber. It's a form of engineered wood product, which is basically when you glue together smaller pieces of wood to create a new material. There are several types of engineered wood products. LVL becomes really strong because you have so many layers where you scatter the defects that are naturally occurring in timber material, like knots or fiber grain deviations. And that raises the bar on the lowest strength that can be found in any component and makes the capacity that you have to use when designing towers higher. Modvion aims at producing around 2,000 towers per year when we have been rolled out globally. We are not there yet, but this is our goal. So we want to make a large difference with this technology. When you look at the greenhouse gas emissions from wind power, it's easy to think that there are no greenhouse gas emissions from wind power, right? It's a renewable energy source, but everything that we do always has some kind of impact. And material manufacturing or processing is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. For a wind turbine, the emissions are very, very low compared to other energy sources that use fossil fuels, for example. But there is still some emissions. The tower represents 25% of these, and on the graph to the right, we can see what the reduction in emissions could look like if you move from a steel-based tower to a timber-based tower, right? There's a large reduction. So, and if you combine that with the fact that timber also captures carbon dioxide from the air when the trees are growing, right? And the carbon becomes locked into the tower material when you build the tower, then kind of net result of that is around 30% for the total wind turbine system of greenhouse gas emissions from using a timber tower instead of a steel tower. And this then has the potential to make this already sustainable power source even more sustainable, which is a goal of ours. Modvion's history looks, or Modvion's planned path looks something like this. We have completed stage 1 and stage 2 of our development, which is the prototype tower at Björke and the first commercial installation. This tower we call the Wind of Change. It was completed 1 year ago, and I will show more pictures of that. We're currently in the third stage, where we are designing a tower for the actual addressable product that we want to target, which is a 6 megawatt wind turbine generator. After that, we will have an industrialization stage where we make the production cost efficient, and after that we will scale this as much as possible, basically. That's the plan. And now I would like to show a video of how the tower is made. It's nice, isn't it? It's crazy. So, show of hands, how many thought you could do this with wood? There's one there. Yeah, it's... I will go through the phases now as well. So, this is the production line. This is from our factory in Gothenburg, where we also have the office of the company. This is a tower module when it comes out of the lamination stage, where we bond the different LVL boards together. And it's going into this machining cell, right, with the two robots with the giant saw blades. And over here is when it comes out of the machining stage with its shape shaped into the final precision that is needed to assemble the components. After that, there's a transportation stage into the paint shop, where we put on the surface protection. You need a surface protection. You can't just keep timber components out in the rain. We all know that, right? So there's a coating on the outside that prevents the moisture from accessing the timber. There's a storage, and then when it's time for installation, there's a kind of a just-in-time delivery scheme where we transport the modules to the site like this, and then on the ground here we use the small crane to assemble the modules into tower sections. These are the tower sections, and these are the modules, right? There are 4 modules in one tower section. And they are assembled like this. There's like a jig or a stand that we lift these modules into, fixate them, and then we bond them together using adhesive in these joints here. Okay. After that, we bring in the big crane, which is this crane here. And then this crane does the stacking of the tower, and that is what builds the tower to its height. And during this phase, we also connect the tower sections to each other using a steel-reinforced adhesive joint. So it's all bonded together, the entire tower. Here's a nice picture from when we were building the tower of a sunset over. There's Lake Vänern here in the background, the big lake. If you look at the map of Sweden, there's a very big lake. And here's my friend Walker Kearney. I was originally from New Mexico, USA, actually, but he works with us, and he's guiding the tower section onto the already built parts of the tower, right? So he's bringing it down and making sure that these slits that are cut into are aligning with each other, after which we will insert the steel plates into the slits, we will cover the cavity, and then we will inject adhesive into the void that is around the steel plate, and when it has set, that creates the connection between the two tower sections. When the tower is fully constructed, the crane is used to install the turbine. These two guys here, they are guiding the blade into its position on the turbine hub. These are screws that will hold the blade in place when it's been fully mounted. There's one guy here and there's one guy here, right? They are sitting inside the like cowling of the turbine because these things are big, so you can do that. Yeah, they guide it. Like the crane operators are like fighter pilots. They are really cool guys. They can maneuver these. This thing weighs 20 tons and is 45 meters long, basically. No, this blade doesn't weigh 20 tons. It weighs less, but several tons, 5 tons maybe. They can maneuver this into within 10 centimeters of where it needs to be, basically. And at the end, these guys are guiding the blade. Like that's what they are doing. They are using their hands to do the final adjustment, and then they talk on the radio to the crane operator who helps them move the full weight into position, basically. It's very inspiring to see that work. And this is the final installation. So we completed this tower last autumn, 2023. It's a 105-meter hub height, and the diameter of the turbine is 90 meters. It's a 2-megawatt wind turbine generator, which is, by modern standards, quite a small wind turbine generator, actually. The next tower that we make... Oh, sorry. Expected another slide. The next tower that we make will be for a 6-megawatt installation with a 166-meter tall tower. So here's a slide on the application of wind power to the Caribbean. I think there are many advantages of wind power for the Caribbean. I hear that it's windy a lot in the Caribbean, so this is very good. It's good for the capacity factor. The capacity factor is something that tells you how much you get out of your wind turbine, basically. In Sweden, this is typically somewhere around 33% or 37%, right? If you have more wind throughout more of the year, this capacity factor will be higher, and you will get more electricity from the same installation. So that's good. And that makes the power produced from the wind turbine lower cost, on top of the already low cost that wind power provides. Logistics will be something that needs to be dealt with when you're on an island, of course. So for that reason, I think modular solutions is the way to go. And there are also other companies working on solutions for wind turbines from Sweden. There's one company called Hexicon who is developing floating wind turbines, which also might be very relevant for an island community. Okay, I'll open up for a few questions. Please.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, students. Please visit our exhibition at the town hall. The Swedish ambassador has invested time, money, and effort, and it will be on until Friday afternoon. So I am employing the teachers and the principals to allow the students to visit because you're going to learn a lot. Back to you, Eric. Yes, questions? When you began, you said that you started with 2 individuals. I guess you were one. But you have not told us how many you now have in your company. I am very anxious to hear. I have more questions. I'll ask all of them. And when you put up the wind turbines and the towers, I guess you do this for the government. And I would like to know about how much you are paid, because innovators, you are in the business to make money and to make profit. So that's what I am interested in. I'd like to know, how many millions the government pays for these turbines and towers. Oh, yes, I'd ask, I asked the Impolita a question she could not answer, so I am asking you. I don't know if you have a patent on the adhesive, the glue, because I am very curious, after a time, glue tends to cockle and it tends to make things disintegrate. So I would like to know whether you have your own patent on the glue and how strong this would be for how many years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very relevant questions. I think the 2 first questions will be answered in the rest of the presentation. So I will let that answer those questions. And then, but the question on the adhesive is a good one. And it's this is important when you build things, right? You have to make it work. And the government has a role in that. There are rules set out in Swedish society and European society and societies all over the world on what you're allowed to do, basically. So, but it's typically not like you can use this adhesive to make this thing. Like that's not the rule on a governmental level. It's more like what you have to do to prove that this will work the way that you say that it works. And the adhesive that we're using, we haven't developed our own adhesive. We purchased this from a large adhesive manufacturer. We use a product that has been used and verified in timber construction industry for many decades now. That is used to build skyscraper buildings and things like that. So it has a proven track record and of longevity and suitability for this type of lifetimes that we see in this tower. In addition to that, we also we have made a lot of strength testing to make sure that the things that are unique for our application will also work. Okay. One more question I think we have time for, a short one.
Yes, I'll be short. Good morning, everyone. My simple question is, have you guys tested, okay, let me rephrase it. How would the towers fare in hurricane force winds? If we were to use these towers in St. Lucia, how would you think they would fare in hurricane force winds?
Thank you. Excellent question. So all wind turbines are designed in accordance with a standard, typically. There's an international standard for wind turbine design. It stipulates basically how much safety margin you need in all your calculations in order to make sure that it doesn't get destroyed in strong winds. And so the design parameters you need to use in order to make it work, it differs from different site locations, right? So if you would build a wind turbine for a place where you have hurricane force winds, that is included in the design code and in the design methods to ensure that the properties of the turbine are such that it will withstand these winds. And that can mean that you have to have more material and make a stronger design of the wind turbine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will move on with this next section of presentation, which is more about myself. Okay, first slide. Where am I from? Where is Sweden? And there are two world maps here that look a bit different, and I think it's an important matter of perspective, especially for young people. Sweden is up north in the north of Europe, and on what is the standard kind of world map over the last 100 years or something, the Mercator projection, Sweden looks like a very large country. But this is to a degree a result of the projection that is used to map out the world on the flat surface. Instead, I like this projection, which is called the equal Earth projection. It's kind of trying to combine the size and shape effects to preserve both pretty well. So that's where we are from, and this is where we are now. And more specifically, I come from a region called Värmland in Sweden, which is this triangle-shaped region here. And the red dot in both maps is where I grew up. That's where my parents' house is. The yellow dot here is where I live now in Gothenburg. The purple dot is where the Wind of Change tower is, the big tower that we built. And the dark blue dot is where the Björkö tower is, our first tower that we built. So it's on an island just outside of Gothenburg. The ambassador was talking about the history of Sweden and some hardships there were. And these are some guys that come from my region, from that era. This is Mr. Alfred Nobel here. He doesn't come from here, but this is where he had his horses when he died. So that was kind of declared as his home at the time in Karlskoga. This guy grew up here. His name is John Ericsson. He's one of two people accredited with inventing the modern ship's propeller. These two here, that's Lars Magnus Ericsson, and that's Hilda Ericsson, his wife. These two founded the Ericsson Telecommunications Company, which is one of the largest telecommunications companies in the world. And Lars Magnus, he grew up here in under quite poor conditions. His father died when he was young and things like that. And here's my favorite. This is Harry Nyqvist, who is not very famous, but it's only a few kilometers from my parents' house. He grew up in a place called Nilsby, which is to this day only 4 buildings, approximately. He ended up in California and made significant contributions to control theory. And I was taught his theorems and principles when I went to technical university, which I find interesting. Here are some pictures from my kind of childhood. This is my parents' house in the wintertime. I thought you might find that interesting, with like a half a meter of snow, which was the case quite often when I grew up. Up here is my father, my mother, and my sister skiing in the 90s, which is kind of a folk sport back home. Everybody does it, really, I would say. There was a strong interest in technology from a young age in my life. Me and my father flew these radio-controlled airplanes a lot, and we did other things as well, including sailing. That top picture is my sister, my father, and I. The last time I was in the Caribbean, 20 years ago, my father turned 50, we had the opportunity to go sailing in the British Virgin Islands, which was very nice. And also, for me, that was an inspiration to study naval architecture in the end, actually. Here's my wife, Martina, who I love very much. And this is our daughter, Hilda. This is our son, Elis, here. And that's our daughter, Leia. These two pictures are from a fjord close to Gothenburg, where Martina's mother has a house where we spend a lot of time in the summers. So we get like 2 weeks a year. We get weather like you have all the time, and the rest of the year it's colder. I went to school in Värmland primarily. I went to 3 different schools from 7 to 20, with kind of an increasing degree of specialization into, at the end here I was taking mathematics and physics courses because that was what I liked and was good at. At the beginning everyone has the same education. These are all publicly funded. There was no reason for me to study any special school. And I had a long string of good mathematics and physics teachers that really helped me. After school I went to university at Chalmers University of Technology, mechanical engineering, naval architecture. Top right there is a lecture from Knut, who taught control theory. It's an actual photo from when I studied. And here's a yacht that we designed, me and my friends, during naval architecture studies. And Chalmers was a really good school to attend to. It's regarded as one of Europe's finest technical schools. So I've been very fortunate to be able to study there. There's no tuition in Swedish universities, which made it possible for me to study there, basically. You have to, of course, pay your rent and stuff like that. So I worked weekends and evenings in a lumber yard in Gothenburg while also taking classes to support myself. And when I didn't work, I spent a lot of time doing extracurricular activities. This is images from the Experiment Workshop, which is a student club for mechanical engineering that's situated in the basement of the mechanical engineering building in Chalmers University, where the machines that are used for teaching manufacturing principles in the daytime can be made available to the students in the evenings, so you can build stuff. Here's me and my friend Carl. We're making a hovercraft that we later hovered down the streets of Gothenburg with in a festival that's called Cortegen, which happens every year in Gothenburg, where the whole city comes out and watches the students do kind of a technology and humor-inspired carnival train. And this is important to me. I spent you know, they say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in an area. Like, I spent much, much more than that on engineering principles. I love it. It's my passion. And I was able to grow that also in spare time. At the end of my studies, I did a thesis at a company called Friendship Systems in Berlin. I had a girlfriend there, so I looked for a thesis opportunity in the Berlin area, which was presented itself. And they make a very interesting software that is used for automatic hull shape optimization of merchant vessels. So it's CFD, or computational fluid dynamics, coupled with CAD, coupled with optimization algorithms that automatically change the shape of a hull shape in order to optimize the performance of a ship. And I did a thesis on applying that methodology to a wave energy converter. So I started doing renewable energy technology in my thesis. And when I was done with that, I got a job at Minesto. I got that job because they were looking for someone who could do exactly that, what I did in my thesis, to build a plant model, a system simulation, a digital twin, a version of their power plant that works inside the computer, so you can predict the behaviors and loads of the actual thing and design it better without building expensive prototypes. Minesto develops this tidal energy converter. So it's a device that makes ocean currents into electricity. It's a wing that's flying around in a shape underwater, and it's propelling a turbine, which then converts the flow of water into electricity with the use of a generator. But I also had a lot of use of my practical technical skills. So when there were issues with prototypes, I could help in doing that. And I have many hours in the workshop to thank for that. Yeah. Here's a slide on Minesto's current status. They have developed their technology further. This is, like you can see here, the kite flying underwater. What flow water is that way. Yeah. They are also in Gothenburg. This is the Dragon class, they call it. Nice name. It's a wordplay on the word for kite being dragon in Swedish. We had our daughter Hilda in May 2016, and then I had parental leave for 9 months. During this time, I got the question from Otto, the CEO of Modvion, if I wanted to come on board and help him try to make this tower a reality. So I made the switch in 2017. At that time, it was just me, Otto, and Otto's dog, actually, a German Shepherd who more than once put a lot of saliva on my suit. And we set out to do, initial checks of the technology, basically, will this work? Comparing cost efficiency and strength between steel and timber, and finding joint solutions that would have the performance that is required. Here's a picture of David. He's the guy with the idea behind Modvion. We are bending LVL for the first time in this photo. Look how easy it is. You can only use 2 fingers and it's fine. And up here is this is not our blade. This is from a site visit that we did early on. Modvion was awarded a grant from the Swedish Energy Agency to develop the Björke tower, the first prototype tower. So in the next phase, we set out to do that. And we were few people. We went from 2 to 7 during the Bjerke years. So we were all involved in different things. I took the main responsibility for the engineering of the tower. And the project was set up as a consortium between Chalmers University, Research Institutes of Sweden, which is a separate it's a separate institute who is owned to a large degree by the government, but they act independently. And they have a lot of testing expertise, and they are accredited so they can say whether something is strong enough or not, basically. And industry partners, it's us, of course, who are the entrepreneurs, and then there was several supply chain companies that were involved in this consortium. Moelven being one of them, and we were lent a corner in their workshop to build this tower. So in Töreboda, which is a completely different city. So during a year's time, we basically assembled the tower ourselves by hand in Töreboda. And then we installed it in April 2020. And then we were 7 people in the company. This photo was taken a little bit before that. It's only 6 people here. Maria-Lina is missing. But, yeah. Moving on, we wanted to go up in scale. We wanted to build a tower that would prove in a commercial scale that our technology works. So we set out to do the Wind of Change project. This was also awarded a public grant by the European Union, which was a great achievement by Modvion to be able to pass through the checks and balances to get that awarded. But in the meantime, we were also able to finance the company by taking on private equity in this phase. So we could grow the company, and we could set up the Bäckebol facility that we're in now, which is the first manufacturing facility, and also the office where we do all the design work. And during this stage, we grew to more than 25 people. It depends exactly when you look at it, right, how many we were, but we grew a lot. And then we were able to install this tower in autumn 23. This is Walker Kearney again in 2 pictures. And here's Remy, is our installation specialist. This is Geir Söderin. He was product owner for the tower in this project, and the lead engineer, I would say. Being happy because it's going so well. And now Modvion is moving up. We are currently developing a tower which will be 166 meters tall and carry a 6 megawatt wind turbine, which is the current industry standard in Europe for wind turbines. The rotor diameter of that turbine will be around 165 meters as well. And it weighs, the turbine itself that's on top of the tower weighs several hundred tons, 300 tons, something like that. So engineering is ongoing for that. Okay, so now there's a slight shift here. I want to talk a little bit about the prerequisites that were needed to be able to do this journey, both on a personal level, but also for the company. For me, it's been a dream come true, basically, to be able to work in these companies. But you need certain things, right? As a human, you need to have income. You need to be able to support your family. You need to know that you will not sacrifice your life, basically, when you're joining a high-risk endeavor. So the factors that are in place in Sweden that have guaranteed that for me is, I would say, a prerequisite for me to be able to do this. We have unemployment insurance. If the company fails, I will be paid for a time, right? So I can change my life accordingly. There's universal health care, so I don't have to worry about that, basically. There's free schooling, which is very helpful, so that I know that my child will get a good education. And this all boils down to freedom to do these things, to think about these things, to follow your passion or the path that you see into something, to achieve something which is difficult, right? This is important for individuals. You need to have the maneuvering space, basically. Speaking of maneuvering space, like, why can we do this? Why is it not, the law that you have to build wind turbine towers the way that they have always been built? Because we know that that works. You may think that there's a high risk that a timber tower will fail, right? So why can we do that? And so the government plays an important role here. There are rules and regulations in place from the government. They are set in place to safeguard society and make sure that no crazy inventor does something unsafe, right? That kills people or destroys the environment for everyone else. But the trade-off here is that the rules and regulations also need to allow progress, right? So the law in Sweden basically says that you can build whatever you want, as long as you make sure that it works. This is actually it's called the Plan- och byggnadslagen, the like construction code, right? This is the top paragraph. You can build stuff, but you have to make sure that it works. So if it fails, it obviously didn't work, and then you are liable, right? So it's on you. There's a legislative strategy there it's kind of like responsibility. What was the word? You have the mandate, but you also have the responsibility, right, to make sure that it works. And how can you do that? Like when you design a new thing, how can you guarantee that it works, right? And one way of doing that is to use standards that are put in place. There are guidelines that show you how much proof you have to make sure to show that it works. And you can also use something called third-party verification, right? So this is what Modvion has done. We have designed the tower, and then we have allowed experts in the field to review our design, and they have made their statements on whether this complies to the rules, right? And that basically reduces the risk, not to zero. The risk is never zero. That's impossible. But to a low enough level that the regulatory bodies are happy with it. And then we're allowed to do it. And the final bullet here is transparency. So this process, like what you need to do to show that to show you that your thing works, right? The path that you have to walk in order to make your solution viable in society and for the market, to be able to overview that path, to see it, that's very crucial for being able to take the risk on a new endeavor, right? You have to, if there's any obfuscation, like you would be under the risk of not being allowed to do your thing after you have developed it, which is an unacceptable risk, right? So transparency in the rules and regulations is key for any innovative climate, I would say. But to get it done, to make it work, the key really is the people that do it. It's become apparent to me that, there are genius inventors, there are highly skilled people, and they start businesses and things like that, but it's impossible for any one individual to achieve something like a wind turbine tower out of wood. So the key to really making it work is to gather more people and bring them on board on the mission and make sure that they have what they need to be able to contribute sufficiently well to make it work. So, and they in turn, they also need to, want to do this. So they need the personal freedom to think and act and collaborate. You need to build an innovative culture, right? It needs to be not shameful to fail an endeavor, basically, because then people wouldn't dare to do it. You need to be brave in society, and you need to be, leaning forward. And these people who do it, they also wouldn't be able to puzzle all the pieces together if they didn't have access to the know-how that is available in society. We are engineering this solution on the very edge of what is possible in timber construction. We are pushing the edge of what is possible in timber construction. So being able to freely move around universities and find where the key skills are and make use of that is also key. Plus, you need money, of course. You need to pay wages for the people, and you need to buy wood. Modvion has been funded in several different ways. We have many private investors, which we are very thankful to. We have so-called angel investors that came on in an early stage, and when we were in the Björke Tower phase, and they were putting in often their private money into our venture, knowing that the risk is extremely high. But if we succeed, the reward would be really high as well. We have venture capital funds, investors that are basically have that as their companies that have that as their business, right? Trading, investing in high-risk endeavors in order to get a high return. We also have been fortunate, and we have been excellent at finding soft funding or governmental grants. These are processes that are highly. When you receive a public grant, you don't just get it. You have to prove that your project will work and that it's useful for societies. And Modvion has been really good at showing that, and also the promise of the solution that we develop is such that many people want it to work. So Swedish Energy Agency is one governmental body in Sweden that has granted us money. Vinnova is another one. EEC is on a European level. And when you have money and you have people and you have the will to do it and you have the personal freedom to think and act, you also need to have some context around the company to make it work. It's very important with infrastructure, and with infrastructure I mean things like you being able to communicate with each other, and IT is one such thing. Supply chain is very important as well. If you have to invent or produce every nut and bolt yourself, it will take too long time and be much too annoying. So And I put down a word here called Gnosjöandan. It's a favorite phenomenon of mine in Sweden. There's a place called Gnosjö in Småland, a region in Sweden where there are many small to medium companies that produce hardware for larger industrial companies in Sweden, and they do services basically. And they have a very strong culture of delivery in that particular town. It's famous. They will stop at nothing to make a good job done, basically. And I've seen it myself. We've ordered components from there where the business owner was sick and he couldn't do it, so he called his competitor down the road and asked him to send someone over who could run his machines, and he was able to send his son, basically, who would come and run his competitor's machine so they could deliver components to us as quickly as possible. And this is part of kind of a societal culture that is needed to be put in place to make these things really tick, right? On the IT side, I also want to mention the Swedish government's initiative in the 90s where when personal computers became available, right, there was a push in Sweden to put one personal computer in every home, basically. There were subsidies and work computer purchase methods, and people could trade their salaries for having a personal computer at home. So in a few years, we all got a PC in our houses, even though they were much too expensive for most people, right? And then 20 years later, you start getting companies like Spotify or Klarna or Minecraft, which was developed by a company called Mojang, which is actually Mojang in Swedish, which means gizmo. So Swedish government has have had foresight, provided context and ability and opportunity for people to learn about these things, which is important. And I think that drives the fact that there are a lot of innovation in Sweden. This is a part of a slide that shows over 400 different renewable technology startups in Sweden. I know several of them. They were situated in, a few of them were situated in the same accelerator that we were sat at with our office in the early days of Modvion. And there's really like, there's a really strong culture around these things. So, in summary, I want to just conclude that we can achieve great things. And by we, I mean us, everybody, humans. It's like magic, right? Making this tower work. It was impossible, basically, and now it's possible. And it's the it's the hard work of the people that work on it that make it happen. And the collaboration between all these people, my friends, and the different parts of society all have to pitch in, right? We wouldn't be able to do it without the universities. We wouldn't be able to do it without the other businesses that want to deliver components to us. We wouldn't be able to do it without funding. We wouldn't be able to do it without the government. So it really is a team effort, right, to make innovative endeavors successful. And it's amazing to be allowed to be one of the kind of channels for this idea to grow. So with that, I want to thank you. We'll open up for more questions if we want to do that and have time. This is a picture of a large part of the team of Modvion, but we are so many now that you can't get everyone in one photo. So to answer the question, we are approaching 50 people at this stage. And these are the guys that do it. Thank you.
We open the mic for further questions. You may just step behind the mic and go ahead.
All right, good morning, everyone. Chadia Mathur, Eric, thank you for your presentation. You've really hammered home for us that innovation thrives best within functioning ecosystems. I have a few questions. I'm curious as to whether Modvion has attained profitability. I'm curious as to how much capital you've raised, and if the company has attained profitability, over what period of time would you say the company grew to attain profitability? This is just for context, because generally in the Caribbean we think you start a business and it moves, but you know, when we have startups like these, we know that sometimes they can take some time to attain profitability. So I'm curious as to how much capital you've had to raise, whether you've attained profitability, and how long did it take for you to get to that point? Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent question. We did not attain profitability yet. To answer that question, we have built 2 prototype towers, right? The latter one we have sold, but the proceeds of that does not cover the full development cost of the system, of course. And it's an accurate point that you make. It takes money and it takes time, right, to make something new work. And customers, they don't want to buy something that maybe works. They want to buy something that does work, right? So depending on what your venture is, your kind of how long time it takes before you reach profitability can differ, right? And this is being a heavy industry innovation project will typically be subject to quite a long time before that is the case. The phase that we're in right now will develop the tower that we will sell to our customers. So the goal is to, within a few years, take orders and be able to have income that way. Yeah, it's a very good question, but I can't answer that question. Sorry. Yeah.
Good morning. I would just like to know, what is the main thing that has helped you to persevere when you came about your biggest challenges?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
The main thing that has helped you to persevere when you came about your biggest challenges. You can't hear me.
The main thing that helped you move forward when you came upon challenges.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question. There are a lot of challenges in making something completely new that has, to advance a field beyond what has been done before. So it's. I think the main thing that has helped us is our resolve and will and our, friendship in the team, basically, to overcome obstacles. I don't know how many times me and Gay looked at each other and was like, "This is it. It doesn't work. We will not be able to make it work." And it's countless of times now. So I've learned that our ability to rethink and re-engineer and navigate around obstacles is really, really strong. And I know that we are probably the best team in the world situated to do that on this particular application. So I would say that, like the collaboration between the team and the spirit.
Okay, thank you. I understand that inherently your end goal is to make sure that your manufacturing processes are sustainable to forming your windmill. But my question is, what essentially is the coating made of, and how do you plan on continuously protecting the timber from the natural elements going forward?
Good question, thank you. The coating is it's a polyurea-based chemical, which is basically a two-component plastic that we apply on the outside of the tower in a few millimeters thick layer. This is a surface coating that is used industrially to protect many different applications in construction, for concrete constructions, and also for wind turbine components in other contexts. So it has a well-documented track record of longevity. So it's designed to last the lifetime of the turbine, right? So you coat it once and you don't have to repaint it, so to say, after a while. And it's plastic, so it's obviously not as sustainable as timber, right? But it's only a very small part of the tower which is comprised of this coating. And we plan to, when we take the towers down at the end of it, the plan is basically to cut it into beams and pillars and sell those on the construction market, so that we can recycle the material of the tower into building components, right? We envision a cascading reuse, end-of-life use case for this tower, where we make the first virgin use of the material in the high-demand application of the wind turbine, and then it moves on into construction in falling degrees of complexity, basically, and use it for load-bearing pillars and beams first, and then for non-load-bearing things like chipboard or stuff like that. And then you can recycle the cellulose fibers into paper pulp and things like that before you finally recycle the energy, right, of the material. And then you take some new material. So this is like a 250-year-long process for the cellulose fibers, right? But this is like, and that's like, it's like people are laughing here. It's a ridiculous thought, right? That society could collaborate over 250 years to really cram out every single use of one cellulose fiber. But this is like, that's the goal. This is where we're going. That's what we want to do.
Good day. I'm Kevin Clark, a product developer at Real 3D Solutions. And my question to you is, well, it's similar to what she asked. How well would this solution work in a tropical climate?
Thank you. It would work very well, I think. No, I don't. You have to refine the question a little bit. Like, in what regard would there be? What do you see as an issue in a tropical climate?
Okay, well, in terms of the humidity, the tropical climate has, the humidity allows for stuff like fungus and stuff to grow, which feeds on wood and this material. In Sweden, usually you guys have a colder climate, so I guess you wouldn't really have to worry about these decomposers. But within a tropical climate, I know you have the pint, which prevents water, but in terms of other organisms like termites, etc., organisms that you'd probably find within the tropical climate, how would it last in that?
Yeah, thank you. On the humidity, the tower is designed with an enclosed air volume inside, so we don't ventilate the internal air volume into the atmosphere. for that exact reason. That would be an issue in Sweden as well. So the enclosed air volume holds some vapor, right? Some amount of water, which is really, really small in comparison to the water that is situated inside the tower wall. And the tower wall then breathes and creates an equilibrium to the air inside the tower. And it completely dominates the humidity situation. So what we do is that we monitor continuously the relative humidity inside the tower, and we make sure that we don't ventilate to the atmosphere unnecessarily. And that is sufficient to keep the humidity levels in the tower at the appropriate level for the timber. And that, I'm confident, will work in a tropical climate as well. You might need to introduce a small dehumidifier or something like that, but probably not, actually. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so you made the towers out of lumber. One of the main reasons is that trees and lumber is renewable. But on average, how many trees would it take to get enough lumber to build those towers, and a predicted how long it would take to regrow those trees?
Thank you. It's around 1,000 trees to build one tower. And a typical spruce in Sweden is regrown in an economic sense in 50 years.
Okay.
So it's like on a tree-by-tree basis, this is a long process, right? But Sweden has a very strong timber industry which continuously harvest and regrow forest, right? We use many, many millions of cubic meters of timber every year for different applications, such as timber construction, but also for toilet paper and also for power generation and things like that. So, and we see that this is a high-end application for the timber, right? So we think that the timber fibers are valuable, and they should be reserved for these kinds of applications initially, to really make the most use, the most benefit for society out of them. And when they are spent in this application, we can then reuse them, as I stated before, which then also creates lower pressure on the ecological system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am a student of the Beaufort Comprehensive Secondary School's A-level department, and I study green engineering, and I would like to know, apart from making renewable energy greener, can you share the sustainable manufacturing strategies and approaches that you use in the design and manufacturing of the wooden turbines?
Thank you. I'm going to have to think a little bit. Sustainable manufacturing strategies. I think making the tower makes a large difference on the sustainability side. Sustainability is a wide term, right? So we don't have direct emissions for the climate in our production chain. For obvious reasons, we don't have to reduce any iron ore to steel or something like that, which releases carbon dioxide. So that's helpful. You also need to make sure that you don't emit toxins into the environment, right? From your factory, that's one of sustainability issues with production. There are rules and regulations in place for that in Sweden that we adhere to. We have, when we use adhesives, for example, we have a closed system where we wash the equipment in a special container that drains into a fixed container, and that is then taken away and processed in a facility in the city. Actually, the factory is situated next to Göta Älv, the Göta River, which gave Gothenburg its name. And it's within the area of water uptake from the city. So if we have a large spill and it runs into the day water drain, the risk is that we put toxins in the river and it comes into the drinking water, right? So there's quite strict regulations that we adhere to. But we have, Swedish government has been there and they have looked at the stuff that we do and they have approved it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, good day. Since like we all know that the wind turbines are like tall, they are very vulnerable to like winds and like hurricanes, storms, and all those wind forces. Has the idea of a pendulum been used as a way to like mitigate this? Yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. Thank you for your excellent and thoughtful and engineering-wise very high-level question. I interpret your question as to you're referring to what is known as a tuned mass damper when you build tall buildings, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for the rest of the audience, this is like when you build a tall, slender structure, you can and that is subjected to wind, right? You get movements when the wind is changing its direction, and you can get oscillations and vibrations. And if there's resonance, yeah, that means that the oscillations are self-magnifying and can, even though the initial vibration is not harmful, the subsequent increase in movement due to the resonance can destroy a structure. And this is the case for wind turbines as well, of course. And some wind turbines use tuned mass dampers in the tower top, or at least they use fixed mass units to shift the resonant frequency response of the entire design away from the disturbance frequencies, which then prevents resonance. Are you with me, Anders? Excellent. And this is part of the design of wind turbines, right? You have to analyze the disturbing frequencies, which is typically coming from the turbine. So there's the rotor RPM, and then there's 3 times the rotor RPM, which is basically the blade passages in front of the tower. These create 2 vibration signals, and then you have to ensure that the flexing of the whole structure does not coincide with those, the frequency of the resonance of the flexing of the whole structure does not coincide with these disturbing frequencies. So that is taken care of in the design phase. We have not needed to put any mass dampers in the tower yet. So for the markets that we address now, it's safe without them. But it is one tool in the toolbox that we can use in the future if we have requirements and we can't meet them on a frequency level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have to say, I think you have really good technical level on these questions. Like, I'm very happy about that. It's impressive. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My question isn't so much regarding engineering, but when you were speaking on your education in Sweden, you mentioned how it was publicly funded. Does that only apply for people who are born in Sweden, or if a foreigner were to go to study, would that also apply for them?
Thank you. Yeah, the short answer is yes, it would apply to them as well.
Okay, and secondly, you also mentioned the unemployment. If you're unemployed in Sweden, you would receive like payment from the government until you can get a job. Would that apply for a foreigner as well?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's I'm not aware of the exact rule set, right? But there's people of foreign birth who live and work in Sweden, they can get the unemployment benefits as well after some time, right? They have to meet certain criteria, basically. I'm not aware of the details in the criteria, but it's not like it's impossible.
Okay. Finally, what was it that made you know that mechanical engineering was what you wanted to do? Like, what was the point when you realized that's what you wanted to dedicate your life to?
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually I don't know really. I think my father was a strong influence. Actually, he had a career where he was a truck mechanic initially, and then when I was a kid, he was kind of the manager of a workshop in a company called NCC, which is a construction company. And when I was 7, we built a boxcar together, and it's huge and it has a motor on it and stuff like that. He really enjoyed these things as well, so he kind of went overboard with this. I was 7, right? So I didn't really contribute. I was just painting it in the end, basically. But somehow I've always, been interested in technology. We went to air shows and things like that, and we went on boats, and I just really like building stuff, basically. So I knew from quite an early age that I wanted to study engineering, and I knew that Chalmers was probably the best place to do it for me. So I knew that ahead of time, basically, and then it was at some point when I fell in love with the water and boats and stuff like that I decided to study naval architecture.
Okay, thank you.
Throwing sticks in the river, watching them flow, that's like it's a strong childhood memory. Why are they spinning, What is this whirlpool doing? Why? Stuff like that.
Excuse me, a short question. Eric, I'm not sure whether you mentioned it, but I am curious to know how long it takes to build one of your towers. And this is pertinent, and you learn from his answer.
Thank you. Yeah, it depends on at what stage of development we are referring to. This tower that we built now, it took a few months to put together, and that's because it's the first installation, right? In this scale, we had to figure out how to do all the things, and we also had to put in a large safety margin in the planning of the activities on site and make sure that everything is safe and have lots of air in the schedule in order to be able to replan if we find any deviation from the initial plan. When the system is fully mature, we predict that the stacking of the tower with the big crane, putting the tower sections on top of each other, will be a few days, 1 to 3 days maybe, depending on the size of the tower. And the pre-assembly stage, which is then putting the modules together into sections on the ground, could take approximately 1 week or 2 weeks or something on that scale. Thank you.
Hi, I'm a student of Safa Lewis Community College, Business, Innovation and Sustainability. I just wanted to ask, in terms of earthquake and fires, has Mudvian taken inspiration from Japan-resistant earthquake technology when building your turbines? Because so people have spoken about earthquake, not hurricanes, but I'm not really sure where you guys stand on the aspect of earthquakes and fires.
Thank you. Good question. earthquakes are not part of our design criteria at this stage. We are acting in a region initially here where we don't have any regulatory requirements to take that into account, basically, Northern Europe. It does not seem that the wind power industry makes special arrangement for earthquake conditions, and that is likely due to that the turbine itself has very beneficial properties inherently in its flexibility and resistance to dynamic loads, right? So this is already kind of included in the wind turbine design by default. But I can't commit to that answer fully because I don't know the exact specifics on it. But when we address such a market where this will need to be considered, then we will surely work out the exact details of that. Okay. On the fire question, we follow the normal regulations that is needed for fire protection. In Europe, fire protection codes are based on the amount of time it takes for a structure to, how long time a structure can withstand fire before it collapses, right? So that you can evacuate the personnel that is inside it. That is basically the basis for the fire regulation, and that is easily achieved by our design due to the thick walls. The timber is a flammable material, right? But it doesn't, if you ever try to put a match to a log, without making kindling out of it first, then you know that it doesn't just self-combust, basically. You need to put the appropriate conditions. You need heat and you need fuel, which is the timber, and you need oxygen, right? So it's actually quite fire resistant when you have such a thick timber wall.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm a student from the St. Joseph's Convent Secondary School. You mentioned the rules, regulations, and third parties that was involved in approving for the tower's construction. Could you clarify how long it took for the testing period took for the tower to be deemed viable for building?
Thank you. Yes, I can do that. When we built this wind of change tower, I was kind of responsible for the structural test program. I don't know exactly how long time it took, but it's on a scale of 18 months.
Okay.
Thank you. From planning out the test program, executing the tests, and submitting the documentation and getting it reviewed and approved. It's on that scale.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Eric, thank you very much for coming all the way from Sweden to St. Lucia to speak to our young people. In St. Lucia, we have a lot of, as you can see from just this sample here, very bright and talented youth. We have a very bright and talented youth in St. Lucia. But our resources are limited. A lot of them who have reached a certain stage, their parents, they have to pay. We're lucky that we have education. It's free from infants through secondary school, although there are some fees that the students' parents have to meet. And then they go on to the technical or the tertiary level. Again, it's a cost. But what advice would you give to all our young people here who have an idea in their head that they know can be beneficial, not just for themselves, but society, and they need to get it out? How can you encourage them? What advice can you give them to get their innovations, their ideas, turn them into businesses, to turn them into reality?
Thank you. I will try to answer this question. It's a difficult question. It's how do you move forward? My history is basically a combination of different opportunities and prerequisites that have been made available to me, combined with strong passion and interest in what I do. So I think that's the okay. So the main advice, right, is never quit. That's basically the main advice. That's the algorithm. Like, the only way to fail something is to quit. So don't do that. Unless there is no, way forward where you can support yourself financially, or where you can, take care of your family and things like that. You have to find this level. But I think that's the main thing. Keep trying. Yeah. And it's like, on that note, it's hard work. Like, I have done, when we built the Björke Tower, I had a 2-year-old daughter at that stage, and I worked 3 days a week in Töreboda, which is a different city. I commuted to that city, and I worked 14-hour days, 3 days a week in that factory, building the tower. And then on the Monday and the Friday, I would be in the office, and I would do documentation to get third-party review for the tower. So that was really heavy time. But, it worked because we were doing it together, basically. I had the support from my family, and I had the support from my colleagues, and all those things. So it's a lot of, it's really hard work. I can't say anything other than that. And you need to really want it, and you need to not quit. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Delarue. What a fantastic presentation we had here this morning. There were times when, I must say, the crowd was very rough on you. The questions were coming in fast and furious, but you kept your own advice. You never quit. And we are grateful. Let's have another round of applause for Mr. Delarue. I'd also like to add, as a former educator, that it brought me great joy and immense elation to see the level of questioning that our children were able to articulate very clearly and very well read. And let's have a round of applause for our students. And because we are so grateful for all that has transpired here this morning, we invite Mrs. Michelle Anthony Daisy, our Honorary Counsel for Sweden to St. Lucia, to deliver the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, I've heard some words which I think are very important. Passion, that we are stronger together, the importance of collaboration, inspiration, teamwork, having the freedom to dream, and the power of innovation. To that, I would like to add the word gratitude. Gratitude is more than just a courteous gesture. It is a powerful force that shapes our perspectives and enriches our lives. It is therefore my honor as Honorary Consul of Sweden to St. Lucia to extend heartfelt gratitude and thanks on behalf of Ambassador Benson to all those who have contributed to this event. First and foremost, I extend deepest gratitude and thanks to Mr. Eric Dollarud, today's speaker, for traveling thousands of miles and for taking time out of his busy schedule to share his journey and invaluable insights with us with such exceptional clarity. Your expertise and vision have truly inspired us all. Much gratitude to our Mistress of Ceremonies, Ms. Linnell Malzer, Director of Innovation with the Ministry of Education, for taking on the role of Mistress of Ceremonies. We are truly grateful. A heartfelt thanks to the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee for agreeing to allow us to participate in this year's activities. When our ambassador, Excellency Anders Benson, first broached the idea of bringing a bit of Sweden to this year's festivities, Dame Paulette Louisi, chair of the Nobel Laureate Festival Committee, was on board from day one. Dame Paulette, having worked with you and your committee, gives me newfound respect for your service and that of the committee members who make the entire festival a reality each year. It was a pleasure to collaborate with you and your team. Thank you. We are also deeply grateful to our hosts at the Financial Center Complex for providing the space for today's lecture, and for our team of experts for all of the audio-visual and technical equipment. I must also place on record my thanks and gratitude to Mrs. Suzette Collimore, my personal assistant, for her efforts and for taking charge of this event. Without her, I would not have been able to keep all my ducks in a row. To the media, your attendance is appreciated, and we are grateful. To each and every one of you here today, I say thank you. We are exceedingly grateful that you have taken the time to be here. I hope that you leave feeling a little bit wiser than when you came in. I am delighted to see so many of our students, and I encourage you to always be curious, to never stop learning, and to strive to make your communities better. The field of alternative energy holds immense potential, and it is your innovation and dedication that will drive us towards a sustainable future. Once again, thank you for all your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Honorary Counsel. At this point, we're coming to the close of our session today, and I just want to reiterate a few things that I heard Mr. Delarue shared today. He says that we can't build an innovative culture on our own, which means we need each other, and that we need to dispel the culture of shunning failure. It's okay, it happens sometimes. We reiterate. But it is still Nobel Laureates Day, and I did tell you it was going to be a good day. It still is a good day. So I invite you to do something edifying today. Let those sparks that fired in your mind while Mr. Delarue was making his presentation come to light. I thank you.